Right, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Right, so here we are again with another topic for your course English for Communication. There are three things that we're supposed to cover in our third class. They are the communication models, the ethics in communication, as well as the principles of communication. So we're going to start off first with communication models. Right, I hope that everyone have had their breakfast and is feeling well today. I would much rather have a personal experience, but here we are again with another classroom over the internet. Okay, so communication models. So why do we have these communication models? Well, basically so we have discussed in our previous class the elements of communication. So when it comes to the elements of communication, there are 5 elements, which are the sender, the message, the channel, the receiver, and the feedback. Some of you have shared videos on those things, and I'm very much aware. Let's do a quick recap. Basically, the sender is someone who has something to share. They want to share an idea, an emotion, or maybe some certain information. And then they want to send it. They put it in a message that should be understandable. Let's say the sender is a Malay, dia nak cakap dengan orang Melayu, so most probably the message will also be in Malay. Dia quote dalam bahasa Melayu, and then they send it through a channel. The channel can just be face to face, or it can also be over the internet using social media, using WhatsApp. And then it comes to the receiver, because of course when you are communicating, you need someone to receive the message. And then after that, there must be some kind of feedback. If there is no feedback, the sender will think message tak sampai. Okay, so again, 5 elements of communication. So communication models, the thing that we want to cover for today, we talk about the relationship between all the different elements in communication. Now, there are a few suggested models in communication: linear, interactional, transactional, power, and cultural model. Okay, let's start first with the linear model. Right, so when it comes to the linear model, it's actually very simple. Sender hantar message to receiver hantar message to sender, and then the sender sends a message to receiver. So this communication process is relatively unproblematic. Like we can see here, one person sends a message and then another one receives it. So the flow of information is linear. Linear ni maksudnya dia mendata je tau. Dia macam selari je. Okay, so it's not very flexible, this communication model. Right, so if we go to the next model, which is the interactional model. Okay, so interactional model is a little bit different, as you can see here. Okay, so sender encoding ni maknanya dia codekan message tu, so that in hoping that the receiver will understand, like the one that I've said just now. Sender tu orang Melayu, so dia codekan message tu probably dalam bahasa Melayu, and then message tu goes through a channel or medium. Lepas tu receiver tu decode the message. Okay, the receiver is able to decode the message, nyah kod dalam bahasa Melayu dia. Okay, let me give you an example that I can think of. Let's say I'm in my office. I am sharing my office with Arabic lecturers. So these Arabic lecturers, if let's say they have something classified to discuss, something very personal, they will talk to each other in Arabic. Dia hantar message tu, dia ikutkan dalam bahasa Arab. Saya ada dalam medium tu sebab saya ada dalam office, but I am not able to decode the message because I don't understand Arabic. I don't have enough knowledge on Arabic to understand them. However, lecturer Arabic tu dia quote dalam bahasa Arab dekat office saya through the channel. The receiver is also another Arabic lecturer, so dia boleh decode. So that's what it means. Alright, so what makes interactional model more more flexible than linear model, you can see here the arrow. So the arrow from the receiver, it goes back to the sender. Okay, so there is a feedback here. And also interactional model also take into consideration the immediate physical environment, the physical environment that the sender and receiver is in. Let's say you are somewhere that is noisy, then most probably you're not able to communicate well. Katalah dekat panggung wayang, you try to communicate with your friend, you want to communicate and then it's too loud, or maybe someone is asking you to be quiet. Alright, so that is interactional model. Okay. And then the next one is transactional model. So in this model, it suggests that both the receiver and sender of the message change role. So basically, sender boleh bertukar jadi receiver, receiver pun bertukar menjadi sender. And you can see here, there's like a recycle bin. You know, it's always like a constant communication. Right, so I hope that you guys can see this. So when the receiver receives the message, dia hantar message balik, dia pula jadi sender. Okay. Right, and then the next one, the next two, power and cultural model. So power and communication model here, we talk about the relationship between the participant or maybe in the society. Let's say, for example, you start working later. You have to consider your relationship between you and the sender and between you and the receiver in the communication process. Let's say, for example, you start working and then you are talking to your boss, your superior. When you talk to your boss, then most probably you will be more, your choice of words will be more careful. You'll be more careful, you'll be more polite when you are talking to your boss. However, let's say you're talking to your friend, dia punya power dalam relationship tu, sorry, I should have zoomed in earlier. Okay. The power in the communication will be different in this case. In this case, most probably tak ada kisah sangat lah. So it's the same as well when it comes to your relationship with other people. You're talking to your lecturer, for example. So when you're talking to your lecturer, the power is more towards your lecturer, so you will tend to be more polite compared to when you are talking to your friends. Okay. Cultural model is almost similar, the same. However, this one, we talk about the culture, right? The culture is at the center of the communication process. So the culture will influence the way you communicate. Let's say, for example, you are talking to someone from Malacca. I mean, there is a misconception, I may say, yang mengatakan orang Melaka ni kasau. It's actually not really true, but you know, it's culture. Ada pandangan dia, ada budayanya, kononnya Melaka ni kasau, but it's not actually true in my opinion. So most probably when you speak to someone from Melaka, you can get offended because you think, oh, kurang ajar orang mat ni. It's actually not true. Orang Melaka memang macam okay, never mind. Okay, how about someone from Kelantan? When you talk to someone from Kelantan, their culture is different than ours. Let's say, for example, they have this saying, nate beruk. Nate beruk to them is actually very offensive in their culture, right? In their culture, if you say something like that, it is actually quite offensive. But for someone like me who is from Melaka, I would think, ha ha ha, lawaknya kan. So you have to consider that. And also when it comes to culture, let's say in Malay culture, we are very respectful of our mother. So the way we speak to our mother is also different than the way we speak to our, let's say, brothers and sisters. Okay. Okay, so I hope that is clear now. So again, there are 5 different models. The linear model. Okay, so you can see here linear model ni very linear. Dia terus tegak je. Dia tak ada langsung any kind of flexibility. And then interactional model here, we have some kind of flexibility. Dia pergi balik. Alright. Okay. And then transactional model here, there is it looks like a recycle bin here. Okay. And then power talks about power in communication, and then culture talks about the culture in communication. So the reason why we are actually covering the models of communication, it is because you need to understand, I need everyone to understand that there is no definitive way on how one should communicate. You cannot just use one strategy when it comes to communication. You have to consider all the other aspects. Okay, you have to consider the culture of someone. You have to consider the society, the power, who has more power in that communication. You also have to consider the physical environment, and then the encoding and the decoding. Right? You cannot just simply use one strategy, one technique in communication, especially later when you start working, especially as students. Okay, so communication can exist under any circumstances, and each will be determined by the elements in the communication process. So these models, they represent possible circumstances, kemungkinan yang akan berlaku pada kamu. For example, let's look at the example. A simple conversation among friends can fall in the linear model, while a meeting between employers will likely follow power in communication. When you understand this model, you can bring understanding of the context of the communication. Okay, so for communication model. Right, so when it comes to ethics in communication, there are ethics for speakers and audience. So this one I will leave up to you to try and figure out. Okay, so that will be all. Thank you very much.